Cardinals.
What is up, everybody? Time for Eric and I to bring you guys another live before lock. So as you're coming in the door, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Not a big slate, not a big slate at all. We've got 8 games overall on the slate. FanDuel locking a little bit earlier than DraftKings today, so a little bit of more options to look at on the FanDuel side of things. So we'll break those down, a little bit differently, but, small slates each. So it won't be hard to mix in the talk about the 2 different slates and separate them out a bit. So we'll bring all that to you guys here as we go. If you got questions for us, you are Stokastic Sub, hit me up in Discord channel so I see that question and then I could answer it here on the show. And what is this? Oh, a big contract extension for Jaren Jackson Jr. Thought it might have been MLB news, but it was not. It was NBA news. Eric, what's going on? How was your weekend?
It was pretty good. Got to hang out with some friends, a little golf. I love my wife. You guys are all jerks. That's all I remember from last Friday. You are all assholes. Cardinals Pirates delayed due to rain, so FanDuel Slate, take note of that, I suppose. And let me tell you, we unleashed the stolen bases against Eric Fetty today. It's not as good without Pozo behind the dish, but Eric Fetty, 16 stolen bases allowed, just 2 caught stealing so far this season. We're talking like ungodly ratios. And if you did not bet O'Neal Cruz and Cabrian Hayes to steal bags today, and then I threw in Nick Gonzalez for like $5, we are not the same. We are not the same.
I don't think many people are sitting there going like, you know what? I wish I was the same as Eric Lindquist. I don't know how many people thought that in the chat today. By the way, if you hadn't brought up Friday, I would have forgotten what we talked about on Friday's show. So whatever happens and whatever people say in chat, you really brought it upon yourself. With that said, now that I'm recalling what happened on Friday, a really stupid slate went down on Friday where it was really hard to get pitching correct. So ultimately, it really did end up being your best interest that you played a little bit less lineups than you were otherwise wanting to.
Yeah, my wife was like, oh, should we get another glass? Because we were out till 12:30, 1 a.m. I was just like, you may absolutely get another glass because you saved me many hundreds of dollars by absolutely yelling at me, actually. So, it's one of those things where maybe listening to your wife is the best policy in life. Or maybe not.
Could certainly be the case. Obi-Wan wants to know what happened on Friday. You'd have to go back and watch the show after the end of this. We kind of berated Eric for the full hour, and it's really not that much different from what happens on a lot of NBA shows, but it went down on Friday for the entirety of the program. For today, by the way, we do have some games that have some potential rain in the forecast, but at least as of right now, I know we just had the game that was delayed for FanDuel purposes. There's nothing that I think is super likely to get canceled in its entirety. We do have the St. Louis-Pittsburgh game, which is a FanDuel consideration, not really a DraftKings one. I think the most likely scenario is that it does end up playing, but it's also not a game that I'm crazy interested in. So if you just don't play it, then that's totally cool as well for the FanDuel side of things. Anything else you want to talk about as far as overarching points to the slate before we get into it?
I mean, I'm always interested in targeting Eric Fetty, so I'm just saying. He spells his name E-R-I-C-K. That's stupid. It's ick, but not like cool Eric, like me. C for correct. Anyway, I'm ready to rock for this slate.
The worst way to spell Eric, though, is have you ever seen E-R-O-C-H?
What Martian named their kid E-R-I-O-C-H? I've never seen that, no.
I've seen it before.
E-R-O-C-H, just Iraq?
Well, no, that's a country. Let's see. Who's the athlete?
That was actually pretty funny.
I've definitely seen it before. There's also E-R-I-C-H. That's another bad one.
These are lies, noticing. Don't make me ban you. Anyway, continue.
I've seen E-R-I-C-H. There's a handful of those. I think it's like primarily German, but there's some bad spellings for Eric out there. And I think you do have one of the better ones at E-R-I-C. Anyway, nobody gives a shit about that. Baseball for today. Let's talk about some of the pitchers, starting with the pay up options on DraftKings, which there's only 2 of them. One of them massively, massively popular though. We've got Garrett Crochet, and just talking about the 10K plus pitchers for now. Actually, screw it. Let's just group Logan Webb in with them as well, because there's a pretty big price drop off after that. Garrett Crochet, $10,700 is 74% projected owned, We've got Carlos Rodon, 16% projected owned at 10K in a pretty tough strikeout matchup against the Blue Jays, a team that has proven to not swing and miss a whole ton. Then you got Logan Webb at $9,700. He is 21% owned. He is a pitcher who you and I liked quite a bit in his last start against the Marlins and went very poorly. He didn't pitch well in that spot, wasn't really able to generate strikeouts. But Eric, the real question here is with Garrett Crochet, who's clearly just from a projection standpoint, the best pitcher on the slate. But what do you make of him being 74% owned?
I mean, it's a little bit over-owned, and yet I'm over the field on it slightly. This is kind of just the Sims doing its thing. I don't know what to make of it because there's definitely reasons to get away from a pitcher that is this crazy popular, but there's also reasons to just figure it out with the rest of your lineup. This is like a mega chalk piece in NBA where it's like, yeah, he could turn his ankle and he's going to be 80% owned when, his chances of being optimal are around 50, 60%. But you're much better off just taking whatever those points end up being at that ownership and figuring out the rest of your lineup, because nobody rivals 8.5 Ks in the prop market. Nobody rivals what we're looking at as far as a matchup against Cincy. What's the problem is the hitting environment. It's a really good hitting environment in Fenway normally, and that's especially so with slight breeze out, 85-degree weather, humidity. But I think he is just above and away the guy that I feel the most secure about at the pitching position. That's not some unbelievable news. And, we've talked so much about times that I've been lower on Garrett Crochet, times I've been higher. On this shorter slate, I just don't see a reason to get away from him.
Strikeout prop opened at 8.5. It has been bet down to 7.5, but it's still a significantly higher prop than anybody else you have on the slate. So like Carlos Rodon, for instance, who's $700 cheaper than Garrett Crochet, his strikeout prop is 5.5 today. And that number's also been getting lower. Not the actual number, but the juice has been going down as the day's gone on. I actually think it's juiced towards the under at this point now, the 5.5 strikeout prop for Carlos Rodon. So you just look at Crochet compared to Carlos Rodon, Logan Webb, both at 5.5 strikeout props today. And I just have to favor Garrett Crochet despite all the ownership here. And then, run everything through the Sims. I still get overweight to the field to him. Let's see. If we look at just the base settings here on the Sims without any kind of adjustments made for it, 82% of Garrett Crochet showing up. I mean, I think he's the best overall pitching option on the slate, even despite the ownership. Shows up in a ton of lineups. Just play Crochet today. If you are playing a bunch of lineups, the way you can get a little bit of leverage off of them is, let's say you're playing, 20 lineups. Maybe you have Crochet in, in 19 or 18 out of 20. And then the couple of lineups, the one lineup that doesn't have Crochet, maybe stack against him in Cincinnati, and that could be a reasonable way to go about it. But Crochet looks outstanding. We have him with a 42% chance being one of the top 2 scoring pitchers on the slate, and there's not even another pitcher higher than 18% in the top pitchers tour right now. So Garrett Crochet, he's the guy for me. Super chalky, but kind of hard to get away from. The next 2 options, Carlos Rodon, Logan Webb. Do you like either of these guys? They're both, somewhat popular. They are the, second and fourth most popular pitchers overall on the slate. Do you have a preference between the 2?
Yeah, I mean, my preference is definitely going towards Logan Webb. Toronto is not the strikeout matchup you're looking for. These are not the droids you're looking for. I don't find a reason that I really want to go to Carlos Rodon whatsoever. In fact, do I even have I'm playing 20 lineups and then I'm playing a big single entry lineup, and I don't currently have him. I get if you're trying to get away, because right now we've got Logan Webb pulling more ownership and you're trying to trim down on some of it, but I don't really find it necessary. And Logan Webb's $300 less. So we have a higher top 2 percentage on Logan Webb. It's pretty easy to fill in bats today. I think that's something we'll obviously talk about when we get to the stacks. And I feel really confident about some of the stacks that I've currently got that are on the cheaper end and their chances of success. But don't know what else to add here in this spot either. It's just pretty clearly the guy who Logan Webb routinely goes over that 18.5 outs prop. Didn't last time out. Miami, we covered that. But I feel quite confident he has a better play than Carlos Rodon at nearly identical ownership.
I don't like either of them, Rodon or Webb. If I'm paying up for pitcher, it's just getting all the way up to Crochet. I really didn't get too much exposure here to Webb or to Carlos Rodon. There are cheaper pitchers I like that I actually think for this particular slate have more upside than both of them, and there's so much cheaper guys to look at. So for me, no Logan Webb, no of Carlos Rodon. If I was playing 5 to 10 lineups, I wouldn't be rostering them at all. Over the course of 150 lineups, like, yeah, it would make sense to have some exposure to them, but they're definitely not ones that I am all that high on. Let's answer this question really quickly from Mr. CoolCam97, because he says FanDuel lock is coming up. Favorite stack on FanDuel for a FanDuel GPP. And also really quickly for the FanDuel side of things at pitcher, just roll out Garrett Crochet, and I think you feel pretty good about that. Until Mr. Cool came out with his lineup before FanDuel lock hits. If you're playing one lineup on FanDuel, Eric, who would be your number one team to go to as a FanDuel stack?
St. Louis. So you talked about not having a ton of interest in that Pittsburgh St. Louis game. I have a ton of interest. 9 total. Andrew Heaney on one side, Eric Fetty on the other. I really like stacking up that game. We got the late start. I think it plays now. It's going to be clean. It might have some showers throughout. That's kind of what I'm seeing everywhere. But I mean, we were talking about an underowned St. Louis team, and then the late delay, everybody gets a little bit wonky with stuff like that. I get it can be uncomfortable, but think about how many times, this is something that Adam used to say on shows all the time, and I will give him the proper credit for it. It's just like with St. Louis and Pittsburgh, like think about how many times you're going to lose an MLB DFS over the course of a season. I really like being overweight to both those teams, especially if there is some apprehension to be clicking on those buttons. So I think the stolen base upside and power for Pittsburgh, sure, it's not a good ballpark, but it exists for St. Louis on the other side too. Andrew Heaney is no longer good.
Yeah, so for me, and just as a little bit of a look ahead, it's the same team I like on DraftKings for single entry as well. You got a modestly owned Baltimore Orioles team that's also cheap against Patrick Corbin. I like stacking against Patrick Corbin a bunch in his last start as well. I'm trying to remember who it was that
I don't know. I might actually bet Patrick Corbin over pitching outs because the guy, apparently he's just going to survive. Like I have no interest in playing him today, but he has a 15.5 or 16.5 out pitching prop, depending on where you look. And it just seems as though he is locked into being a dude who's going to go 5-6 almost every single time out. And you're getting plus money on the over of 16.5 against a Baltimore team that has a lot of lefties in the lineup, like more lefties. They've been apprehensive. And I know it was a travel day last time out that they took on Carlos Rodon, but Jackson Holiday, Gunnar Henderson, Kowser, Mullins, all 4 of them ending up in this lineup today. You have Chadwick Tromp as a catching option. That's not very appealing. Gary Sanchez, despite having unbelievable power numbers to start off this season, it's still Gary Sanchez, and I don't completely buy into him. Ramon Laureano's serviceable. Ramon Urias, not really serviceable. Like, this is a weird Baltimore lineup, but I get it. I think single entry wise, they are interesting, but like, God, Patrick Corbin, why won't you die?
So for Patrick Corbin, now that somebody brought it up in chat, it is true. It's actually the same matchup. So it would make sense that running everything through, I get to a good amount of this team in the same way I did in his last start, because Patrick Corbin's last start was against the Baltimore Orioles. He pitched 5 innings, gave up 5 runs, and it's the same spot. The hitters are still really cheap. So if I like them in that spot, there's no reason I wouldn't also like them in this spot. I don't know if you remember earlier in the year as well, Eric, we were looking at what some of or actually it might have been with Bellman that we were looking up this research now that I recall. We were looking up what happens when pitchers go and pitch against the same team in back-to-back starts. Yep. And generally what happens, it creates more upside for the offense. You end up getting more outlier games where offenses put up big run totals. And yeah, I mean, we did just see the Orioles go out and score 5 runs in 5 innings against Patrick Corbin. He got off to a pretty decent start this season. I don't buy into it really at all. But he's also started to decline a little bit in recent starts. So we saw him last time out against the Orioles, 5 innings, 5 runs. Time out before that against the Royals, 5 innings, 4 runs. Start before that against your Twins, 5 innings, 3 runs. So these are not really the best starts for Patrick Corbin. And then if you look at his numbers overall for the year, while they're not terrible, 4.24 ERA, 4.26 expected ERA, he's been so bad for so many years in a row that it's reasonable for me to think going forward, he's not going to be good. He had last year, 5.62 ERA, 5.53 expected ERA, 2023. 5.2 ERA, 6.16 expected ERA. 2022, 6.31 ERA, 6.41 expected ERA. 2021, 5.82 ERA, 5.62 expected ERA. He has not had an expected ERA below 5 since 2019, which was his first season with the Washington Nationals. So the numbers, once again, not great this year, not terrible either. But if you look at pretty much every single projection model, Steamer, the one exception, does have him with an ERA north of 5 the rest of the season. That's where I think we're going to end up seeing Patrick Corbin be going forward. He has started to regress in the last couple of starts. Things like a 77% strand rate, a 280 BABIP, when 2 marks that he has been worse than league average in previous years just because he gives up a lot of hard contact. I like the Baltimore Orioles. I like them for FanDuel. To answer Mr. Colcam's question, I like them for DraftKings as well. And then we'll get back to some of the pitcher talk. But Mr. Colcam, hopefully that helps you out. And for pitcher on FanDuel, just roll out Crochet. He looks really good.
Yep.
All right. Cheaper pitchers over on DraftKings. I think there's a lot of really interesting options here. So let's not get to like the crazy punt options yet. Let's look at the guys who are in the 8 and 7K range. So you've got Chase Burns at $8,000. You got George Kirby at $7,700. Drew Rasmusen at $7,500. Michael Waka $7,200. Jacob Lopez $7,000. And outside of Crochet, because he's so popular, nothing else is all that popular on the slate, Eric. In this price range, you got 18% ownership going to Chase Burns. I think we actually had a projections update not all that long ago where it came down a little bit.
I would expect it to come down. I can't believe that at 4.6 implied run total, and I'm on the under of the game for what it's worth, but there is no doubt that there is massive upside for a Boston team going into this one against a young kid that has amazing stuff. I mean, we saw some amazing stuff from him to start off that Yankees outing, and then, well, we also saw some not amazing stuff. It's called hard hit, like hard. He's going to give up some hard contact. It's a question of like this Boston lineup, the push and pull effect with no Rafael Devers in there. Roman Anthony, how good can he be? You do have, like, I would say this is kind of a middling matchup. You get Rafael in the lineup at the 9 hole, which is better than like 7 or 6 where, you know, the strikeout rate's a little bit lower for him. You get Toro up there in the 3 hole. That's not helpful, but it's better than him being in the 2 hole slightly. Like, there's some push and pull of this entire thing. But the fact of the matter is that he is a 22-year-old with amazing stuff. 1 fastball, 1 pitch that's really, really good, but it also got tuned up at the end of that Yankees start. So like 15% ownership, I think, is about appropriate for it. I can tell you one thing, I'm not rolling him out in single entry.
Yeah, so I think it's a really good spot to play both sides of it. That's how the Sims are kind of showing it too. 22% of Burns, and then also it ended up getting me to, actually the Red Sox as the most roster team without making any kind of adjustments. I think both sides really make a whole lot of sense. Chase Burns clearly has massive upside. You touched on it there, gave up a lot of hard contact, but also ended up striking out, what was it? 9 hitters in 5 innings, 8 hitters in 5 innings. He's clearly got terrific stuff, good swing and miss stuff. His average fastball velocity north of 98 miles per hour. So that's one that I really do think makes sense to play both sides of. And then also, this gets back to what I was talking about when it comes with some of the pay-up options. For his price point, there's clearly more downside, but I think Chase Burns has more upside than Logan Webb or Carlos Rodon at his salary, just because the swing and miss stuff is so good and his stuff is so electric. 17.5% ownership going to Chase Burns right now. So I think he makes a lot of sense. The other one I want to talk about here as well, Eric, who I like a ton, George Kirby. He is so cheap now. So cheap. And while he's not a pitcher who brings a ton of strikeout upside to the table, 23.5% strikeout rate this year, right in line with his career average, which is also 23.5%. He's normally a pitcher who's priced in like the high 8K to low 9K range. And one thing that he's typically able to do, despite not getting a lot of strikeouts, is work deep into games. And that's sometimes worth, like a strikeout or two, just being able to pitch a couple of extra innings. That's something that is going to give you some extra fantasy points. And now that he's not working with any kind of pitch restrictions like we saw earlier on in the year, got up to 6 innings in his last start, the previous 2, 5 innings apiece, 7 innings in the start before that. I think the most likely scenario is we're going to see 6, 7 innings in the majority of starts for George Kirby going forward. In addition to that, do you know which team has the lowest team total on the entire slate today? It's the Kansas City Royals by a really significant margin too. It's about half a run lower than any other team on the slate. So I like getting to a low-owned George Kirby today at 15% ownership.
I get it. And the back half of this lineup ended up having Waters and Rave in it as well. So you get Freddie Fermin from time to time who can bounce around in 16.4% K rate. You wouldn't want that. The big one you really don't ever want to see is Nick Lofton, 16.4%, but considering they went Raven Waters, I think that there's enough there. You're hoping he gets through in a ceiling outcome here where he's going to get through that back half of the lineup 3 times. Those are some much improved opportunities over a Furman or Lofton out there. Mark Canna as well, but you wouldn't have him in there against a righty. So I totally get what you're seeing with it. I think he's going to end up more popular, Greg. I think that's my big concern, is that we end up seeing George Kirby north of the 20-25% number. And I'm not saying that that's that big of a problem, but we do have some punt options with some strikeout upside. And I think that's where I get a little bit nervous. I mean, Max Scherzer could very much get his face blown off, but you want to talk about historical pricing on somebody. I get it. His velocity is like 91 miles per hour. He's 40 years old, broke up. He's 1 start in. Like, I have no idea what to make of it, but we're talking 6,500 for him in large field. I'm going to roll the dice there. And my favorite is Jacob Lopez. I mean, I love Jacob Lopez in this spot. You've got a Tampa Bay lineup that obviously Brandon Lau just set the world on fire over the weekend, made me a lot of money on Friday and Sunday, and 9th inning heroics, but against a lefty, not even in the lineup here to start. And they put meat up to the 2-hole. You've got a Tampa Bay team, 23.2% K rate against lefties, only a 93 WRC plus. I get it's a positive hitting environment, and I get that this Tampa Bay team still has enough there, and I would expect them to be a little bit better going forward. But boy, oh boy, does Jacob Lopez have strikeout upside. 208 expected batting average. This is kind of a revenge spot for him too. I think it was Tampa Bay that got rid of him. I get freaked out because he's an extreme fly ball pitcher, and things are going to go terribly for him at times where it's just batted ball luck. But he's been undeniably good.
You don't have to convince me. I like Jacob Lopez. I think he should be higher owned than what his ownership is. I didn't find it super necessary to get to him a ton on this slate, but I think he is massive upside. I don't really. So today, I understand why it makes sense to stack against him, just considering the park that he's pitching in, the fly balls he allows. But I don't understand why we've had slates like the one that I'll call back to again, the start against the A's, where he was like 4% owned, or the start against the Astros, where he was like 4% owned. The Astros were 20% owned as a stack. And we're looking at his numbers on this show, and it was, why is nobody rostering a guy who I think he was $6,200 on that slate with massive strikeout upside, a 29% strike rate overall for the season. So I think the ownership on him is too low for what his upside is. There are 3 pitchers that I really like in the 7K range. One of them, it's Chase Burns. Oh, I know he's actually at 8K, but Chase Burns, George Kirby, and the other one for me is Jacob Lopez. If you want to go really contrarian, it's 7% ownership. Those are the guys that I like the most. Is there anybody else that you'll add to that mix?
No, not really. I mean, Max Scherzer 6,500.
Well, he's a different price point, though.
Okay, amongst everybody we're talking there, yeah. I mean, the 7K above, yeah, we pretty much hit it. I'm not getting away from Crochet, so it's basically very limited SP2s that you're looking at. I've got 85% Garrett Crochet in 20 lineups, playing him in single entry. That doesn't leave a lot for other pitchers to be coming into the mix. I do have a little Burns, I do have a little Kirby, have a little Webb, but then Jacob Lopez is my second highest owned pitcher, so riddle me that, Batman.
Yeah, so one other thing too, just because he's pulling some ownership, we could talk a little bit about Rasmusen, and I just don't know what to make of his pitch counts because they're all over the place. It's one thing seems very apparent. They do not like him to go through the order more than twice. Fact. Once he goes through the order twice, they're like, okay, we are good here. Yep. He's been outstanding this season, but the numbers are a little bit inflated because he throws, for instance, 62 pitches in his last start. I do think that there was some thought of maybe he'd gone 92 pitches the previous outing, 87 the one before, the both of them was still only 5 innings. So there was a thought of like, hey, are they finally going to start to extend the guy? But then when he only throws 62 pitches last start, the way I see it is they are just not going to allow him to go more unless he's crazy efficient or has like a no-hitter going or something like that. I just think he's capped at 5 or 6 innings and them not wanting him to face the order 3 times through. So I think that really caps his upside in a way that it's hard to capture by just looking at his strikeout rate and his like expected ERA. Yeah, it's so weird because you go through some of his data and I see why the Rays are doing it too. I mean, what they're getting is they're getting these lefty heavy lineups, and then they've got enough lefty guys who induce ground balls that they just don't want Rasmussen to be out there and kind of like, again, third time through the lineup. I mean, I ended up jamming his under 2.5 earned outs prop last time around.
If you watched Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks, you probably jumped on that with me. It's a lot lower now because, again, there were so many different factors, whether it was pitch count, whether it was how good he's been against righties. You get some of these righty-heavy lineups. He's just been electric, and he has a higher strikeout rate to lefties, but 122 expected ISO to righties, 3.5 degree launch angle, average ball in play. I mean, he's just been lights out against them in terms of what that upside can be against him. It's a .076 ISO against righties. I mean, just ridiculous stuff, but lefties, 147 expected ISO, 14 degree launch, and then you get some of these guys, you get to see them a third time through. They don't want to do it with against a Nick Kurtz or a Lawrence Butler or something of that nature. So I still think the under earn runs is in play for it. From a DFS perspective, though, I just don't think we're going to see a lot of 80, 90 pitch counts unless they have a 5-run lead and they just have them eat another inning or something of that nature. Just feels unnecessary on just about every slate now to take that risk.
Yeah, I don't know if the line is still up, but one that I bet last night, at least as an opening bet that looked really good, was under 5.5 hits on Rasmusen, which is he just isn't going to be out there a ton. He threw 62 pitches his last start. So it's really hard.
His earned outs, for reference, I took the under. I just had to pull up the data because I wanted to know. I took the under of 2.5 earned runs for him at -125 last slate. It closed at 1.5 with obviously some juice to the over on that. But today it's under 1.5 plus 112 over -126. We're talking like no chance that he's giving up like 4 or 5, basically. Just, when you think of like range of outcomes, it's ridiculous to have that low of a prop, but that speaks to the pitch count, I think, a little bit more than just what the results have been, which have obviously been good as well.
Yeah. And, you look at his overall pitches for the month, against the Orioles, like I said, he had 92 pitches. He had 87 pitches against the Mets, but only 62 against the Royals his last time out. The starts for that 74 against the Marlins, 76 against the Rangers, 74 against the Twins, 76 against the Blue Jays, 81 against the Marlins, and 72 against the Brewers. It's just hard for me to really expect a ton of innings out of him. There's other pitchers I like in his price range.
Hold up.
Yeah.
No Polanco, no Raley. Urge to Waka is rising. No. Waka's been a reverse splits pitcher his entire career. What are we talking about here? You want righties in against Michael Waka, from my understanding. So it makes complete sense. Polanco's useless from the right side. And Luke Raley, you're basically not going to throw a lefty out there when you can just replace it with Solano, who has a better profile against him.
Let's see. Michael Waka for his career has a 293 WOBA against lefties, 325 against righties. Derek's point. Yeah, he's better against lefties than he is against righties, which, you see that not all that frequently, but maybe like, I don't know what, 1 in 15 starters or something like that, or like that. So yeah, when it comes to Michael Waka, you would rather see, if you're interested in him, Derek's point, you'd rather see him against lefties than against righties.
Correct.
And as far as that pertains to strikeouts, same deal, 21.5% strikeout rate against righties, 20.5% against lefties.
I hate being smart, Greg. I hate it. But actually, Seattle's being smart. You don't see a lot of teams just do it because they're already set up, kind of do it. Dang good to know. No, that's why you tune into these shows. And this is what Greg and I try to do. I'm not going to be right about everything, but I can tell you one thing. I'm prepared. I always am. I always will be. And Michael Waka is one of those guys that you just kind of have to have in the back of your mind, that you remember that his numbers are routinely worse against righties.
Pitchers, is there anybody you were looking to potentially punt with? I think you may have tipped your hand a little bit with one guy who I agree with to a certain extent. Once again, I don't think the salary savings are super necessary to go all the way down. But if I absolutely needed to punt with a pitcher, Scherzer's the one who makes the most sense.
Yeah, it's not anything to do other than like one start. You can't really say that, oh, he's washed. Oh, he's this. Like, it's one start. The fastball velocity was down 0.7 miles per hour year over year. Broke it down a lot last night from a betting perspective. And I will say this, there were a lot of people just looking to outwardly attack Max Scherzer today that I'm not completely sold. Like, if there's one dude who's going to go out and try until the day that he dies, it's Max Scherzer. Like, you're getting Max Scherzer's 110% every single time he's out on a mound because he doesn't have another gear. He doesn't have something else. And also, Max Scherzer is one of those pitchers that gets a lot done in kind of a quiet way. Like, he's always been a fly ball pitcher, which is always concerning when you see a velocity downtick, but he's so smart. He's always been one of those guys who didn't really reveal his hand until later on. He never really got into pitch tipping because he waits until the very last second to really release the ball. And like, there's so many metrics on Max Scherzer that are just different. He's such a skilled pitcher. He is crafty. He has been forever. That's what you have to do when you've never really had lights out fastball. Like, he's never thrown it over 95 miles per hour, like his entire career, basically going back in the StatCast era. I think like 94.5 is the top he's ever been, or 95, absolutely limitations on the fastball. But the off speed, it was up a little bit. It looked all right to me. The breaking stuff did. And it's a Yankees team that I think is still going to provide you Ks, even if they bash your face in a couple of times. So I think he's just the best guy to try to punt with, period, here. I think Rogers makes some sense because of the ballpark, but like, I really don't like his profile against Texas. And I think that there's just more upside with a Scherzer, even though it's terrifying.
Yeah, it's so hard to know what to make of Scherzer because he pitched 43 innings last year. He's pitched 8 innings this year and made 2 starts. The one thing that I think of all the cheap pitchers makes me say like, he's serviceable at the price point is, number one, even though he's 40 years old, he was a very good pitcher for a very long time, but also he got ramped up really quickly, which to your point is because at this, like, what are you saving Scherzer for at this point in his career? You just throw him out there. He threw 45 pitches in his first start, which came all the way back in March of this year. And then his next big league start last night, he threw 83 pitches. So I think that he's somebody who we're going to see, if he looks competent, probably gets a full allotment of pitches. The Blue Jays probably want to see, is this somebody who he actually can be relying on at all for the season? Because the Blue Jays do look like a potential playoff team this year. And I would guess they are right now very unsure if Max Scherzer is somebody who is going to be a starter for them potentially in the playoffs, a reliever for them potentially in the playoffs, or somebody who they want absolutely nothing to do with in the playoffs, or maybe even down the stretch of the season. And the best way to figure it out is just like, hey, let's have this guy throw 90 to 100 pitches and let's see how it goes for a few starts and make a determination from there. So it's probably going to go poorly, but he's Max Scherzer. He's been really good for a really long time. Maybe it won't be. Even last year in the limited amount of starts he made, while this is not, peak Max Scherzer stuff, he had a 3.95 ERA and a 3.86 expected ERA. That's better results than you normally see from a guy who's $6,500.
Exactly. I'm 100% with you. I think there's nobody else really down here that I'm that interested in. And I mean, Toronto, they're 7 games above 500 right now. So they are right there with the Rays, right there with the Yankees. The AL East is still up for grabs. Boston kind of just sold out for no reason. That was weird. And Baltimore's been the most disappointing team in baseball. So there's a lot of reason to go push for it. If you're Toronto, you've got lefty power for the first time in a while with Barger up top in the lineup. Vlad is doing Vlad things again here over the last month and a half. And you're a starting pitcher away from coupling them with Gausman, who hasn't been perfect, but I think the splitter's still one of those things where if you absolutely find an ace somehow in the marketplace, that could be like the best bullpen long reliever type that you could throw in. You can stack him with other starters like a Scherzer, something of that nature. There's a lot of utility to the roster that they currently have. And yeah, I'd like to see them play for it this year.
Yeah, and then once again, we touched on FanDuel pitching. We've also already talked about our favorite stacks because of the super chat we got earlier. But as far as FanDuel pitching goes, just play Crochet. I think that's pretty simple for today.
Yep.
Stacks for tonight. You guys could see Sims really liking the Boston Red Sox against Burns. For me, overall, I said my favorite stack is the Baltimore Orioles going up against Patrick Corbin. I do not buy at all his outing so far this year. I rely more on the awful starts we've gotten out of him for the last 6 years combined. So overall for me, I do like the Texas Rangers a whole bunch. I think the Red Sox make a good amount of sense as well. And, both sides, like Burns clearly is upside. Terrific stuff. One of the best pitching prospects in baseball. But this is only his second career start. As many strikeouts as he generated in his first start, he gave up a lot of hard contact, which Eric referenced before. Also, nothing on the ground against him. Really small sample size, but he had a 15% ground ball rate in his first start. So I think the Red Sox make a lot of sense in addition to playing Burns. What are the other stacks that really stand out to you for tonight?
Yeah, I mean, we got so many good spots to potentially go. I'll go to the other side of that What was I going to bring up? The first one right off the bat. I was going to bring up San Francisco. I think San Francisco against Ryan Nelson is just a fantastic spot to go to today. Some of the righty power he's been giving up now, in addition to the lefties that obviously look great in Devers and Yastrzemski, I really think that we're going to see some big upside from some of these righties against Ryan Nelson going forward. And Heliot Ramos, I assume, will be in that lineup. I assume we're going to get Wilmer Flores. And then Willy Adames. The shortstop position, such a fascinating one today, because if you want to get some leverage against George Kirby, Bobby Witt Jr. is like elite for a tournament play. I think Corey Seager, people took note of 3 home runs in a row over the weekend. Maybe he's back to doing Corey Seager things. Left on left, we'll see if he ends up even getting steamed up further. But I think people are going to be pretty interested there. There's just so many good tournament plays to get to. And Jose Caballero is pulling the most ownership because of the outfield utility that he's got with it. I think Gunnar Henderson ends up being your most popular guy left on left at the position, which is just insane. So I'll take San Francisco and Willy Adames and a number of those other pieces. I mean, this is my path to getting to crochet. It's just a super cheap stack compared to what I thought they would be here against Ryan Nelson. Not the best ballpark with the roof closed there in Arizona, but by no means inhibitor on this slate for me.
There's so many spots that I think you make a really strong case for playing both the pitcher as well as the offense. Another one, too, is going to be the Tampa Bay Rays against Jacob Lopez. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that Lopez, by the way, our last projection update, Lopez now pulling 4% projected ownership. So
give me that.
You can see where Jacob Lopez makes sense considering his strikeout upside and the low price point, but he also has a 20% ground ball rate, and he's playing in an insanely hitter-friendly park. So there's a scenario here where Jacob Lopez allows some contact. All the contact allows is fly balls, and the ball flies out in that ballpark. I don't think there's an offense with more upside than the Rays going up against him for that reason.
Agreed. I mean, I like both sides of it there. That was the one I was trying to think of in the back of my brain, but my single entry stack is San Francisco, so I thought I would keep it to that.
The contrarian stack that is interesting to me is the Rangers going up against Trevor Rogers. They're so cheap. We have them as the top value stack on the entire slate. And Rogers made 3 starts this year. The numbers have been really good. Rogers had a super bizarre career because when he first got called up to the big leagues, his rookie year in 2021, he looked like he was going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. 23 years old, he had a 2.84 ERA and a 3.37 expected ERA. And then pitching in Miami, super friendly pitchers park the next year, he had a 5.47 ERA and a 4.84 expected ERA. And he just never recovered. So it's like, what happened to that guy? I know he had injury issues. There was an issue where he was tipping pitches for a little bit. Now, last year, the Orioles decide we're going to buy low on this guy who used to be good. And let's see if we could turn around in some kind of way. Didn't happen last year with Baltimore. He looked terrible. He's been hurt so far this year. But in the 3 starts he's made, he has a 1.62 ERA and a 2.68 expected ERA. So here's the question. Has he rekindled some of the thing that made him a former top pitching prospect, made him really good in 2021? Still some concerns. His velocity is way down. He used to throw 95 miles per hour. Now he's throwing 93.5 miles per hour. So still maybe injury concerns are there. But I just think there's been a few years in a row where he's not been healthy and he's not found success on the mound, that considering the Rangers' price points, I think it's a pretty good buy low on a team that is currently, the 5th lowest owned team on the entire slate. We have them as the top value odds, especially as one-offs, guys like Adolis Garcia, guys like Corey Seager. I think they make some sense too to save salary with. So I like taking shots on a low-owned Rangers team as well.
I love that. There's pieces of the Rangers. I mean, I'm playing one in single entry, and there's specific pieces that I think are interesting. Jonah Heim being up there in the 5-hole. As well, kind of a nice lineup upgrade for him. I think Justin Foscue just is going to be popular because of where that price tag lands. He probably ends up getting pushed up a little bit for some of those crochet lineups. I'm probably avoiding it. I do think, a guy like Davis Schneider makes some sense if you're trying to get a little bit different there, although pinch hit risk certainly exists there. But as I go through it, I have no problem whatsoever getting to Rangers bats.
Yeah, especially considering the price point. If you guys are looking to save some salary, we've got the Yankees being super popular. We got 4 teams on the slate that are over 10% owned. It's the Yankees, the Giants, the Rays, the Red Sox. I think you make strong cases for all of them, but just in the interest of trying to narrow it down, if I could only play 2 teams that are pulling 10+% ownership, Eric, I would go the Rays and the Red Sox.
The Rays and the Red Sox. I would go.
And I know you said you like the Giants. I think they look good too. It's more so like,
but they're popular.
You have to narrow it down.
Yeah, I would probably say the Athletics, just because of the ballpark and you said the Rays, they're 12%, right?
Yeah, you got a 13% ownership to the Yankees, 12% to the Giants, 12% to the Rays, 11% to the Red Sox. Every other team, 9% owned or lower.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, out of the cheapies, Athletics, not going to be going to Arizona that whatsoever. If Arizona lights up Logan Webb, I will not be winning money. That is for sure.
As far as the really low owned offenses, any of them that you like for leverage? Because we've got Arizona. That's them going up against Logan Webb. They're 5% owned. The Royals against George Kirby are 5% owned. You've got the A's against Rasmusen. They're 5% owned. And then the Reds against Crochet, the lowest owned team on the slate at 3.5% ownership. I don't really like any of those teams, but if I have to pick one of them, it's going to be the Reds, just for the simple fact that baseball can be random as shit. Crochet is now 76% projected owned. So anytime you can make a stack against pitchers 76% owned, even one who's as good as Crochet, that's something that I think warrants. You play 1 out of 20 lineups that are the Reds, and you're nearly double the field on what the field is doing with the Reds there. So that's the one team that I'll talk about as being a potential leverage stack. Not even because I like them or anything. It's just because Crochet is so popular.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to do it when it's all said and done. So enjoy those dollars. I can't really make a case for going that much Seattle against Waka. I like Cal Raleigh like everybody else. He can be a position winner if Judge completely fails. Obviously, the salary that you have getting to Crochet plus Cal Raleigh, that's a tough attainable duo that I think will be very low owned together. And that's always appealing to me, but can't really vouch for them as a full stack with this lineup. Yeah, I think we kind of covered most of what I'm interested bats-wise in.
All right, so we still got some time to play with here. So before we do our home run picks, Eric, I want to know, let's go through the players we have the most exposure to at each position outside of pitcher.
All right, I just finished my last sim here. So let me piece this together and then I will save this. And now I've got my lineups. There we go.
All right. Perfect. So starting for me at catcher, this is going to be pretty Orioles heavy for me, but Gary Sanchez.
It is Jonah Heim right now for me.
First base, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
It is, where did my ROI thing go? Here we go. Yandy Diaz for me.
Second base, that is Jackson Holliday for me.
David Hamilton.
Third base, that's Devers for me.
Abraham Toro.
Shortstop, Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah, I don't like any of this, considering I'm on the under of the game, by the way. So whatever. Bobby Witt Jr. at the moment, it's going to end up being, when it's all said and done, Willy Adames.
And then outfielders for me, I have 4 outfielders that showed up in over 20% of lineups. It's Laureano, Duran, Springer, and Heliot Ramos.
Heliot Ramos is number 1 by a mile. Not far behind him, Ramon Laureano, Jaron Duran. I mean, just so many Red Sox for a guy who doesn't really like them. And Christopher Morel, 3,600 batting cleanup. There is pinch hit risk. Take note of that. But he's 3,600 against a lefty. I think we got to do that.
All right. One more time. Let me check Discord to make sure there weren't any questions for us. Because if there aren't, then we could do some home run picks here. And we'll read off your guys' home run picks from chat as well. So we'll just take a sec to see if anybody has any final questions. Eric, do you have any final thoughts on the slate or anything we haven't touched on? Small slate, so not all that much to cover.
Yeah, small slate. My final run, I got to 95% Garrett Crochet. So I'm just eating that chalk. Num. George Kirby, we did get his ownership up to around 30%. So now it's sitting about where I expected him to be. So I feel better about that. I really like the idea of getting yourselves to a little bit more Jacob Lopez with that kind of ownership on him. I don't mind the Logan Webb piece. I don't think he has as much upside. And, every slate is different. You have different matchups. You have different ballparks. That's what makes this fun on a day in, day out basis. But Garrett Crochet, doesn't matter what ballpark he's in. He looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, I think what happened here and I'm just making an educated guess, I don't know for sure. Rasmusen was expected for the same ownership as George Kirby before, and it looks like what we did was like when we started the show, it was 15% ownership to Kirby and like 18% to Rasmusen. It looks like just 10% ownership or so went away from Rasmusen, went to George Kirby. I think it's just an adjustment to the pitch count projection we did for him, considering only 62 pitches last time out. So I still like George Kirby a lot. I don't feel quite as good about him at 28% ownership as I did when he was pulling 15% ownership. But I think I understand why the field's getting there, because I like him a good amount relative to the price point as well. But yeah, worth noting, George Kirby's ownership now 28%. We've got Crochet at 76%, Logan Webb 19%, Chase Burns 18.5%, Waka 13%, Rodon 13%, Rasmussen now 9%, Jacob Lopez 7%, and that's the ownership for the most relevant pitchers on the entire slate. Does that change any kind of overall thoughts you had at pitcher?
No, I felt. I mean, I said it on the show. I mean, I thought George Kirby would be more popular. He is. I had boosted his ownership already to a place where I kind of expected it to be. So not really making any adjustments.
All right. So with that in mind, Eric, it's time to do what we always do to close out the show.
Dong of the day. Dong of the day. Let's make fun of Eric. He's so stupid. We want to punch him in the face with our dicks, but dong of the day. Dong of the day.
There we go. There we go. Eric, you've sung the song, so you know what that means now. It's time to give out our picks. Who are you going with to go yard today?
Yeah, so the reason he doesn't make my betting card a lot is, one, he plays in San Francisco, and two, he doesn't launch the ball a ton. But guess what? You get fantasy points for everything you do, and also his odds I just don't think made sense. It was like plus 560 when I bet it earlier today. That is going to be Heliot Ramos. He gets to go up against Ryan Nelson, who's been a little bit more reverse splitsy to start off this season, and then he's just good at baseball. 463 expected slugging, 349 xWOBA. Doesn't strike out a ton. There's not a lot of strikeouts to have when you have Ryan Nelson on the other side. So, Heliot Ramos, dog of the day.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to old trusty here, Eric.
God. Vladdy.
I posted a home run bet on Twitter today, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So I bet him at plus 500 a homer earlier in the day, Eric. Do you know what his odds are now?
I don't know, but it's got to be way shorter than that. That's an asinine number.
Plus 350 now.
What time did you bet that at? Because I woke up this morning and I was like, where is that price? And it wasn't there.
I bet it at, I know, because FanDuel is timestamps, 7:32 a.m. So that was
I was asleep. I was asleep. Good to know. I hate it here sometimes. It's whatever.
7:32 a.m. was when I bet Vlad to homer this morning. So, odds ended up moving a good amount over the course of the day. Stick with him as my home run pick. And by the way, I also have him in my single entry lineup here. Let's see what we have from chat. Chat has got Binking is going with George Springer. We've got Ryan Stubbs going with Alejandro Kirk. Malukar is going with Giancarlo Stanton. Binking also going with Vlad Guerrero Jr. Michael Henry
says, D-Lo to the Mavs. What?
That was Shams reported that yesterday also.
I didn't see that at all yesterday. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is where D-Lo's at now. Once a sought after, now just a mid-level exception guy. Actually, I don't even think that's the full mid-level exception either, but that's where we got now with D-Lo's career. They could use the depth at point guard.
Oh, yeah.
I know people online are going to be like, oh, D-Lo sucks now because he's worse and didn't live up to the expectations he once had. But he's, for a mid-level exception guy, it's a fine acquisition. Anyway, Michael Henry says Cisco needs to remix. Who's Cisco?
Cisco? Oh, I remember. Oh, he wants to do Dong of the Day. What's Cisco? What's his famous song? Cisco song. Thong song. That dong
all right.
is what he wants.
All right. I could get behind that. Michael Henry, get in touch with him, and I'd be down for that. We've got Jeff Williams going with Lawrence Butler. Obi-Wan has got Haggerty. Gary Gregg also going with Vlad. Stephen Jones has got Jazz Chisholm. We've got Binking. Well, Binking's got every third one here is Binking with a new home run pick. Casey Leatherwood has got Ernie Clement and Junior Caminero. CPA Joe K has Trent Grisham. NY Stiegel is going with Donovan Solano. B Funk has got Corey Seager. Aaron Hines also has Junior Caminero. We've got Gary Gregg. Oh, yeah, I already read his off with Vlad. KB has got Ketel Marte for 2 homers. Michael Henry is going with Vlad. Or no, Sotex went with Vlad. Michael Henry has got Roman Anthony.
Liar.
Rooster Slinky has got Devers. We've got Ben Rice from Comer. We've also got Jazz Chisholm from Dan. Clintwood 83 is going with Abraham Toro. Pete Wheeler is going with Rafael Devers. And Eric, that is going to do it for us today. If you guys have not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate it a whole bunch. And if you do want to sign up for any of the packages here at Stokastic, link down below in the YouTube description box. Also, consider checking out Portfolio EV because your first 7 days, totally free. WNBA has been in full swing. I've had really good results for WNBA betting using Portfolio EV. You don't have to know shit about the WNBA. I've become a little bit more familiar with it now where I could actually make some of my own bets. But I also just bet a lot of the stuff that's in Portfolio EV. So take advantage of those bets. Also, before I forget here, News God also ended up giving a home run pick and threw Gunnar Henderson in there. So I want to make sure we give News God his home run pick as well. So guys, thank you very much for watching. Have a good night. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow.